The glow from my phone was the only light in the room when it came through a message from Mom. "We no longer trust you. Don't come to the office tomorrow." For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, watching the words burn into me like a brand. My thumb hovered, then typed one word back: "Understood." I set the phone down on the table beside my laptop, where spreadsheets still flickered across the screen. The numbers I'd been living inside for months. Numbers that made sense, numbers that didn't lie. Unlike the people who'd just turned on me. My name is Marianne Carter, 32 years old, Chief Financial Officer of Carter Systems, the family company I've helped build since I was 22. We designed software for small businesses, and for years, I believed that made us one of the good ones, the kind of Southern family that worked hard, stood together, and kept its promises. I was wrong. My parents, Robert and Margaret Carter, founded the company out of our garage in Savannah before moving operations to Atlanta. They used to tell the story like a legend. Faith, grit, and family, Dad would say. That's what built Carter Systems. Maybe that was true once, before success turned into expectation, before love turned into control. I used to think being part of a family business meant belonging. It really meant never being allowed to walk away. There were 3 of us children. Lydia, the oldest, all charm and lightning, our family's golden daughter. She ran marketing and could sell anyone anything, even our parents on her next big idea. Grace, the youngest, handled human resources, always the peacemaker. She called herself Switzerland, and she meant it. Then there was me, the one in the middle, the one who kept the books, the contracts, the margins, the things that actually made Carter Systems run, the invisible backbone. And yet, tonight, I was the one cast out. The air in the apartment felt too still. I could hear the rain outside, light at first, then harder, the kind that makes the whole world sound like it's holding its breath. I walked to the window and watched the city blur behind the glass. How do you lose a family you've already given everything to? Maybe it started when I found something I wasn't supposed to, a pattern, a payment, a secret. And tonight's message, that single sentence, was their way of telling me they didn't want the truth. They wanted silence. Savannah sunlight has a way of making everything look honest, even when it isn't. That's how my parents, Robert and Margaret Carter, liked to tell their story. The American dream dipped in Southern charm. They started Carter Systems in our garage, just 2 worn desks and a prayer. Mom coded beside a space heater while Dad pitched clients from a rotary phone. By the time I turned 15, our name was printed on buildings, not mailboxes. At every dinner, Dad reminded us we're Carters. We don't just build software, we build legacy. That word, legacy, carried more weight in our house than love ever did. My parents had 3 children, but only one star. Lydia Carter, the firstborn, had Dad's charisma and Mom's ambition. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone believe in her dream, even when the numbers said it was impossible. She ran marketing like a queen addressing her court, and Dad adored her for it. Then there was Grace, the youngest. She handled human resources, or as she called it, family therapy with payroll. Grace had Mom's gentle tone and the impossible task of keeping peace between us all. She wanted everyone to get along, even when that meant pretending nothing was wrong. And me, Marianne, the one who saw what people didn't want to look at. I was the CFO by 28, the quiet one who stayed late balancing the books while everyone else took credit. I didn't need applause. I just needed things to be right. We were close once, summers spent fishing with Dad, winters baking with Mom. But somewhere between the first contract and the first million, the warmth faded. Lydia's laughter became performance. Grace's kindness turned into avoidance, and my diligence became an inconvenience. Still, I believed in us, in the company, in the story Dad loved to repeat about grit and unity, until the day that belief cracked. It wasn't loud, not yet, just a subtle tension, a glance too sharp during a board meeting, a smile too polished at a family dinner. The beginning of something I didn't have a name for then, but I do now. The beginning of the end. It started with a single line on a spreadsheet, one that shouldn't have existed. A $50,000 payment to a vendor I'd never approved, Pacific Horizon Consulting. No invoice, no contract, no entry in our vendor management system. Just a vague memo special services rendered. I stared at it for nearly a full minute, certain it had to be an error. Carter Systems didn't make mistakes like that. I didn't make mistakes like that. The next morning, I walked down the hall to the accounting office. Wes Dalton, our head accountant, looked up from his coffee when I stepped inside. "Morning, Mary Ann," he said with that easy Southern charm that always felt rehearsed. When I asked about the payment, his smile thinned. That one came through from Lydia. She said it was a consulting fee for a project proposal. Everything's above board. His tone was smooth, too smooth. I nodded, pretending to accept it, but my gut told me something was off. I'd spent a decade reading numbers like other people read faces, and these numbers were lying to me. That night, after everyone had gone home, I stayed. The office was quiet except for the hum of servers and the rain tapping against the window. I pulled the last 6 months of transactions and filtered for anomalies, duplicate payments, new vendors, out-of-range amounts. By midnight, I had found 3 more entries to Pacific Horizon, each $50,000 each, authorized by Lydia. A neat pattern. Too neat. The next day, I met Grace for lunch. She always knew how to calm me down. I told her about the discrepancies, about Wes's odd tone. She stirred her iced tea, eyes darting away. "You know how Dad gets when we fight," she said softly. "Maybe just let it go for now." I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation, but the unease had already rooted itself too deep. That evening, I drove home through the storm, headlights catching the reflection of Carter Systems glowing across the building, my family's name, the one I'd spent my life protecting. I opened my laptop again and dug deeper. Every report, every hidden line item. What I found made my chest tighten. 4 payments, $200,000, no paper trail, and at the bottom of each authorization form, Lydia Carter's signature. I closed my laptop, hands trembling. Whatever this was, it wasn't just bad bookkeeping. It was the first crack in the foundation of everything we'd built. The next Sunday dinner felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was holding a secret. Mom's silver candlesticks glowed between bowls of mashed potatoes and cornbread, the kind of warmth that was supposed to mean home. But tonight, it felt staged. Lydia was already mid-story about a new client, her voice bright, her laughter too loud. "Dad!" Robert Carter leaned back in his chair, eyes shining with pride. "That's my girl," he said. He didn't even glance my way. I tried to join in, mentioning that we should recheck a few financial reports from last quarter. "Some vendor activity looks strange," I said carefully. Lydia's fork froze for half a second before she smiled. "Mary Ann, not everything's a conspiracy." She teased. The table laughed. Even Grace, who usually came to my defense, just looked down at her plate. The moment passed, but the sting didn't. Dad sighed, exasperated. "You're exhausting yourself with all these numbers," he said. "You need to trust your sister. Trust. The same word they'd later use to take everything from me." After dinner, I stayed behind to help Mom with the dishes. The kitchen smelled like lemon soap and silence. "Mom," I said quietly, "has Lydia ever mentioned a company called Pacific Horizon?" Her hands paused in the sink. "I don't keep track of all that, sweetheart," she said, voice clipped. "Don't start trouble." That phrase, "don't start trouble," had been our family's commandment for as long as I could remember, and it always meant the same thing. Keep quiet, even when you know you're right. Later that night, I sat alone in my office, the glow of the computer screen washing over me. The rain hadn't stopped, soft against the windows like a warning. I opened the company's financial database again, scrolling through files until my eyes blurred. More irregularities, More payments, always tied to Lydia. I started saving copies spreadsheets, invoices, email trails onto an encrypted drive I hid in my desk. It felt like betrayal, but it wasn't. It was survival. Before shutting down, I called Professor Ellen Shaw, my mentor from grad school, someone who still believed in integrity over loyalty. I told her what I'd found. Her voice was calm but sharp. If you expose this, they'll turn on you. Marianne, family doesn't forgive truth when it costs them. I stared at the empty office, the framed family photo on the wall, and said quietly, "They already have." Outside, thunder rolled through Atlanta. Inside, the silence felt like a verdict. The message from Dad came early in the morning family meeting tonight, 7 sharp. Bring whatever you need to say. It wasn't a request. It never was with Robert Carter. By dusk, I was driving through the rain toward the old family house in Savannah, the same one where Carter Systems was born. The house looked smaller now, its white columns streaked with rust, its porch lights flickering in the mist. I parked beside Lydia's Mercedes and Grace's silver sedan, my stomach knotting tighter with every step toward the front door. Inside, everything was too quiet. Mom's perfume hung in the air, jasmine in tension. Lydia sat at the head of the table in the study, flipping through her phone like she had better things to do. Grace hovered by the window, arms folded, eyes avoiding mine. And Robert, our father, stood by the fireplace, his silhouette sharp against the orange glow. "Let's get this over with," Dad said, turning to me. "You said you had something to show us." I placed a thick folder on the table, every transaction, every forged document, every line of data that proved what I already knew. "I've spent the last month reviewing our financials." I began. $7 million has been funneled through 4 shell companies Pacific Horizon, Blue Ridge Solutions, Northwest Consulting, and Coastal Ventures. None of them exist. The authorizations all trace back to Lydia. The room fell silent. For a second, I could hear the rain against the window, steady and relentless. Lydia's laugh sliced through the quiet. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "You've been digging through my files." "What, Marianne, jealous that I actually bring in clients while you sit behind spreadsheets?" Dad frowned, flipping through the pages, his brow furrowing. "These are serious accusations," he said. "Where did you get this information from our own system?" I replied. "Every dollar, every signature, it's all here." Lydia's tone hardened. "You think I'd risk everything. This is pathetic. You're trying to undermine me because you can't stand that I'm the face of Carter Systems. I'm trying to protect the company." I said, "Protect all of us." Dad slammed his hand against the table. "Enough!" The word echoed. This family has been through too much to tear itself apart over paranoia. "Paranoia?" I asked, voice shaking. "Dad, look at the signatures. Look at the transfers. This isn't a mistake." He looked at Lydia, then at me, and I knew, even before he spoke, which side he'd choose. "Your sister's done more for this company than you ever will," he said. "You've been acting unstable, obsessed with control. Maybe this job's too much for you." Grace took a hesitant step forward. "Dad, maybe we should stay out of it." "Grace," he snapped. Lydia leaned back, crossing her arms with a smirk. "See? Marianne, you always think you're the victim. Maybe if you stopped digging for dirt, people might actually trust you." Her words hit harder than I expected. I turned to Mom, desperate for something, a question, a doubt, a flicker of belief, but she just stared at the table, her silence louder than any accusation. "Mom," I said softly, "please, say something." Her voice was barely a whisper. "We can't have this chaos in the family. Marianne, not again." The words shattered whatever hope I had left. I gathered the papers, each one now just evidence of how little truth mattered here. "If you won't listen," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest, Then I can't stay. Robert straightened. Then don't. The finality in his tone sucked the air out of the room. Grace's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Lydia smiled small, victorious. I stood there for one last second, memorizing the faces that had once meant home. Numbers don't lie, I said quietly. People do. Then I turned, walked out into the storm, and let the door slam behind me. The thunder outside swallowed the sound, but inside, I knew they'd already begun rewriting the story. In their version, I was the problem, the disloyal one, the betrayal. They would never understand I wasn't trying to destroy the family. I was just trying to save the truth before it drowned. The rain hadn't stopped since I left their house. It followed me all the way back to Atlanta, hammering against the windshield like the sky was trying to wash the night away. By the time I reached my apartment, the folder of evidence on the passenger seat was soaked at the corners, a fitting symbol for everything I'd tried to hold together. I dropped it on the counter and sank into the silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, even the ordinary sounds felt foreign now. My phone buzzed once, a message from Mom. My heart leapt before I even opened it. We no longer trust you. Don't come to the office tomorrow. The same words I'd feared since I walked out that door. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then typed back what had become my only truth. Understood. I didn't cry. Not yet. There was nothing left in me to cry with. Just a strange emptiness, the kind that comes when love finally gives up its last defense. I tried calling Grace, but her line went to voicemail. I left a message anyway. Please, just tell me you know I'm not lying. She never called back. On the table sat the family photo Mom had framed years ago, the 5 of us smiling in front of the Carter Systems building. Lydia in the middle, radiant. Me beside her, half hidden behind her arm. I turned the picture face down. Outside, the storm eased into drizzle, but inside, everything still roared. I replayed every moment of that meeting, Dad's fury, Mom's silence, Lydia's smirk. They'd chosen the story they wanted, and I'd become its villain. For the first time in my life, I didn't have a family to answer to. Only the truth, and the truth was heavier than any inheritance. I thought I'd lost everything that night, but what I didn't know yet was that losing them was the first step toward finally finding myself. 3 days passed in silence. No calls, no emails, no explanations, just the steady rhythm of absence. The office login I'd used for 10 years was deactivated overnight. My access revoked like I'd never existed. Carter Systems moved on, and I was erased. On the 4th morning, I met Dana Reeves at a small coffee shop off Peachtree Street. She used to run compliance before Lydia pushed her out. We hadn't spoken in years, but when she saw my face, she didn't need an explanation. I heard about the blow-up, she said, sliding a napkin toward me. You found something, didn't you? I told her everything, the shell companies, the forged transfers, the meeting that ended it all. Dana listened without interrupting, her expression turning grim. You know this isn't just family drama, right? This is fraud, and if you sit on it, you're complicit. Her words hit hard. Complicit. That word stung worse than betrayal. I can't report them, I said quietly. They're my family. She leaned forward. And they've already burned you. Protect yourself. Marianne, look into whistleblower protections. IRS, SEC, whatever fits. You've got evidence. You've got truth. That's worth something. That night, I sat in front of my laptop, every document lined up in folders, spreadsheets, wire transfers, Lydia's signature repeated like a curse. My fingers hovered over the trackpad as I read through the IRS whistleblower program guidelines Dana had sent. Each line felt heavier than the last. If I reported this, it would destroy them. But if I didn't, it would destroy me. I thought of Dad's words. You're not right for this family. Maybe he was right. Maybe the only way to stay right was to stop belonging. I attached the evidence, encrypted the file, and stared at the upload screen. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Then, with a deep breath, I clicked submit. No fanfare, no relief, just the quiet hum of the computer and a truth I couldn't take back. For the first time, the silence felt different. Not empty, just honest. 3 days after I sent the report, the silence broke not with a phone call, but with a doorbell. It was early evening, the city still wet from rain, when I opened the door and saw them Dad, pale and trembling. Mom, eyes red and hollow. Grace, her face streaked with tears, and standing just behind them was Frank Wilder, the family's longtime attorney. For a moment, no one spoke. They just stood there, 4 ghosts on my doorstep. "Can we come in?" Dad finally asked. His voice had lost the steel I'd known my whole life. I stepped aside. They crowded into my small apartment, their expensive clothes soaked, the weight of panic following them in. Mom clutched her purse like it could hold her dignity together. Grace's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Frank cleared his throat first. "It's Lydia," he said, voice low. "She's gone, vanished. She wired $8 million to an offshore account 2 nights ago and forged your name on the authorization forms." The room went still. I felt the air leave my lungs. Dad's eyes found mine. Desperate. "The IRS is auditing us. Marianne, they think we're all involved. We could lose everything, the company, the house, our savings." Grace stepped forward, her voice cracking. "You know the finances better than anyone. Please help us fix this." Mom's voice trembled. "We were wrong to doubt you. Please, Marianne, we need you." For a moment, I wanted to believe them. To believe the years of betrayal had been an accident, a misunderstanding that could be undone with forgiveness. But then I saw it the same look in Dad's eyes that had been there at that meeting, expectation, not remorse. "You'd abandon us now?" he asked, tone shifting from pleading to sharp. After all we built together, I steadied myself, the storm inside finally settling into calm. "You abandoned me first," I said. The words hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. Frank handed me a folder. Inside were Lydia's final transfers to a shell company called Horizon Global. My name scrawled in the signature line, proof of her final betrayal. Mom sobbed quietly. Grace whispered, "We were blind. She fooled all of us." I shook my head. "She didn't fool me. You just didn't listen." Dad took a step closer. "You can talk to the IRS. Tell them it wasn't us." I picked up my phone instead and called Agent Simone Grant, the investigator assigned to the case. "It's Marianne Carter," I said. "I have new evidence linking Lydia to Horizon Global. You'll find everything you need in my report." The color drained from Dad's face. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "I warned you," I said softly. "Now you'll have to live with the truth." They left in silence, footsteps echoing down the hall like a final goodbye. When the door closed, I felt no triumph, no vengeance, only release. The kind that comes when you stop trying to save people who never wanted saving, for the first time in months. I breathed. The storm had ended, and somewhere far away, so had their illusion of control. 6 months later, Carter Systems was nothing but a headline. Southern Tech Empire crumbles amid federal investigation. I saw it scrolling across the TV in the lobby of my new office, a different city, a different life. The logo that once defined our family was now shorthand for corruption, greed, and silence. The IRS report was brutal. The investigation I'd triggered uncovered every buried secret, forged documents, offshore transfers, false contracts. The government issued a $10 million penalty for financial misconduct, naming Robert and Margaret Carter as responsible officers. Most of their assets were seized. The mansion in Savannah was sold to cover debts, its white columns now wrapped in auction banners. As for Lydia, she was gone, truly gone this time. News outlets said she fled to the Caribbean, living under an alias in a country with no extradition treaty. Her photo appeared once on a business site, a blurred image of a woman with sunglasses and a wine glass. The caption read, "Former marketing executive at Carter Systems under investigation." I didn't save the article. I wish I could say I felt vindicated, but mostly I felt hollow. I'd spent years trying to save that company, that family, and in the end, it was my evidence that destroyed them. There's no satisfaction in being right when it costs you everyone you ever loved. Grace was the only one who tried to reach me. She sent a message every few weeks. "I believe you now. I'm sorry. You're still my sister." Each one hurt in a new way. I read them all but never replied. Some wounds stopped bleeding but never healed clean. My parents never called. Word was they'd moved into a small rental near Savannah, living quietly, their pride as broken as their fortune. I didn't hate them. I just couldn't go back. They'd made their choice when they told me not to come to the office, when they chose loyalty to Lydia over loyalty to truth. My life now was smaller, but honest. I worked for a consulting firm that specialized in corporate ethics, helping other businesses avoid the kind of collapse I'd lived through. My coworkers respected me for my skill, not my last name. My apartment overlooked the river. The mornings were quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. Sometimes, I caught myself thinking about Lydia, about what she must feel, living in exile with the weight of everything she'd done. I didn't wish her harm. In some strange way, I wished she'd find what she was always chasing, peace, even if it came too late. One weekend, I drove back to Savannah. Curiosity, maybe closure. I'm not sure. The old Carter Systems building stood dark and empty, its windows boarded up, the parking lot cracked with weeds. The sign bearing our name was half torn, the letters faded, Cart R Systems. I parked and sat there for a long while, listening to cicadas hum through the Georgia heat. This was where everything had begun and where it ended. In my mind, I could still hear Dad's voice. We build legacy. Maybe he was right, just not in the way he meant. What we leave behind isn't always what we planned sometimes. It's what we learned too late. As the sun sank low, I stepped out of the car and walked up to the door. I didn't go inside. I just whispered to the wind. It doesn't feel like loss anymore. It feels like peace. I turned away, leaving the ruins behind. In the end, this wasn't a story about revenge. It was about release, about knowing when to stop fighting for a version of family that only existed in memory, because blind loyalty can destroy you. But truth, even when it burns, gives you back yourself.